Hi all, Neto here. This flipped classroom video is about how to write dialogue in a narrative. Um, I'm going to be going over 6 tips on how to use dialogue correctly and how to use it to really enhance your writing and draw on the plot and push character development. Feel free to pause the video as needed and take notes. There will also be a short activity at the end of the video that will help you practice what you're about to learn. So tip number 1 is watch your dialogue tags. A dialogue tag is the bit that you put before or after the dialogue. So the example is he said, she asked, I replied. I actually took an example from To Kill a Mockingbird. Jem said quietly, my sister ain't dirty, I ain't scared of you. Dialogue tags really should add to the voice and give the reader a sense of how that character speaks. You have to also be careful though about overusing dialogue tags because it can take away from the dialogue itself. For example, if you have 2 characters going back and forth, and every time someone speaks, they said, and he said, and then she said, and he said, it really actually slows down the natural flow of conversation. So being able to use them sparingly and use them effectively to really help enhance the language and the imagery of how the conversation is going is really where dialogue tags are used for, and also just to kind of give clarification of who's talking. Tip number 2, realistic doesn't mean real. So when writing dialogue elements, eliminate the ums and hesitations and repetitions and so on. Dialogue is supposed to give an impression of real speech. It's not supposed to be a transcript of how we really talk. If you want to create accents and characterization around speech, play with the words as in ums and dashes as needed, but do it purposefully. So kind of going back to our To Kill a Mockingbird example, Atticus Finch is an educated man, and so whenever he speaks, you really don't have a lot of pauses or added hesitations or repetition. He actually speaks very fluently and very correctly, whereas when we listen to the Yule speak, you play with that dialect a little bit more in order to create that characterization of someone who's not as well educated. Tip 3, give your characters distinct speech patterns. So when actually creating dialogue, you should be thinking about who your character is and how they're going to speak and like where they're coming from. So a few things to think about is age, gender, social background, education level, any kind of catchphrases that they may have. One good trick is to take just the lines of the dialogue from your short story or novel and cut out any of the actions and names from the dialogue tags, and to see whether or not you can work out who said what. Thinking that back to Kill a Mockingbird again, and comparing our female characters such as Calpurnia, Aunt Alexandra, Scout, and Mayella, it's really easy to tell who's speaking without even reading who's speaking based on the way that Harper Lee develops their dialogue through their characterization. Tip number 4, get in late, leave early. You don't have to begin the conversation at the first word or end at the last. So if someone's talking on the phone, cut out the hi, how are you? Fine, thanks, how are you? Bits, and start at the point that you're trying to get across. Yes, it's realistic, but the reader isn't interested in all the introductory portions. And then on the flip side, often it's really powerful to end a scene in a line of dialogue, but we don't need to see how the character responds. We definitely don't need the conversation to tail off by saying, bye, see you next time, have a good day. So keep your dialogue short and to the point and make sure that it's purposeful, whatever you're putting in there. Tip number 5, punctuate your dialogue correctly. So there's 4 big punctuation points with writing dialogue. The first one would be you want to make sure that every time someone else speaks, you are beginning a new line for each speaker. Here in the United States, we use the double quotation marks around the words that are being spoken, so that represents actual, like someone actually speaking. Have the punctuation inside the quotation marks. And then if you're ending a dialogue with a comma, you're adding a dialogue tag. But if you're ending it with an action, then put a full stop with a period. So check out the examples below And note how, we don't use a dialogue tag when Joe responds because Sarah's talking to Joe. So we know that what about is actually spoken by Joe. And then notice that, like, you know what? She folded her arms, how there's a period, and then she folded her arms is a separate sentence in its own. And thinking about those hand gestures of how they add to the mood and understanding of the scene, even though we have very little. Her folding her arms shows that she's agitated, maybe frustrated or angry, versus like what she waved her arms excitedly, which would totally turn the scene around. The last tip is in a novel, dialogue really should do one, if not all, of the following things. It should reveal characters' relationships to one another, move the story forward, increase tension, and develop an underlying emotion of character and their character traits. So making sure that your dialogue is not frivolous, that you actually have a purpose for your dialogue, and that it's doing one of these four things is essential. Otherwise, it's just wasted space. This slide is just a couple of other ways to use dialogue tags without saying the word said. And again, this can help build characterization, build tone, and move the plot forward based on what you use. I would recommend maybe taking a screenshot or a photo of this so that you can use it for your next activity. I'm going to now ask you guys that if you want to, I'm going to ask you guys to participate in this following activity in groups of 3. Please pause and read the directions. And really what you're going to, the main thing I want you guys to understand though is when you are rewriting your dialogue, after you transcribe it from your guys' 2-minute conversation, be sure that you are not just a teenager, you're not playing your own role, that you're actually getting outside of your role and building a character off of your words, but manipulating that character based on gestures and dialogue tags, and maybe even adding in a few ums or eliminating them to kind of really build a characterization. So that's really going to be the main focus of this, is how you can manipulate character based on that. And you guys will be working in groups of 3 to do that. After you're done, please upload your recorded conversation and your typed out dialogues to the English section of your digital notebook. And this is due by Tuesday. The conversation starters that you can choose from in order to do this activity are as follows, so feel free to pause, read them, and get started. Hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks. Bye.